In the last week, I've been cleaning and reorganizing my flash photography gear. I'm very deliberate about the equipment that I own, and I can now confidently say that 95% of all the jobs I've ever had to do as a professional photographer can be done with just the equipment in these two cases. Let me show you. These are Craft-Right cases from Bunnings. They're the poor man's Pelican. I know they've gone up in price recently, but originally I paid $40 and $60 for them respectively. That's Australian dollars, mind you. One thing I will say about these cases is they actually come from Bunnings with this really sort of cheap, nasty, like soft, what do you call it? Like pinch foam. It's like pre-cut pinch foam. It's good, it works, but you have to take really good care of it. And I have, but even so, it's just flimsy. And over time, it just deteriorates. So one thing I did recently was I went to Clark Rubber. I picked out some nice firm foam and I got some help from the gentleman there to draw the outlines and cut it out with the jigsaw or whatever that tool is that they use to cut foam. I'm so happy with it. It was really cost effective. Between the two cases, it was only like $50 Australian. I'm pretty sure that's just the cost of the foam. I'm pretty sure he would have been doing it for about 40 minutes, I reckon. So I don't even think they charge for the labor. It's just for the foam, and then cutting out is all part of the service. I might talk about that a little bit more in depth at some point. That was such a worthwhile thing to do. It's not 100% perfect. I'm gonna attempt to paint it to make it all look very clean, because it is, as you can see, the texture lines, the Sharpie lines are still on there. And one thing I will say is the way the saw works, you have to come in from the side. You can't start in the middle. So there are cuts, you know, into the side of the foam, but it's firm enough that it doesn't matter, and it was just so worth it. I'm pretty sure they only charge you for the foam. I think it was about $50 for both cases, and it would have taken the guy, I reckon, 40 minutes to do both, so it was well worth it. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. So the first flash I have here, I'll start small. It's a Godox TT685C. Now this is actually a Canon flash, but the reason, well, I used to have a Canon camera. The reason I chose this model in particular is because it actually takes AA batteries, and a lot of the new Godox flashes will, you'll have to use their lithium battery, which they're great from what I've heard. They last ages, they you know, recharge many times, but I really do like the fact that these use AA's. Wherever I am, if I need to, I can stop in at a service station and get a fresh set of batteries, or, you know, I've got probably 40 Eneloops here already that I've used for years and years, and reliable, and just down the track, I think it's a bit more future-proof in case Godox stops making batteries for a particular model. I also have here the AD200 flash from Godox. This is probably the best value for money piece of flash kit I own. It's an in-between. It's more powerful than the Speedlight. It's honestly not that far off my bigger flash. I'm pretty sure 200 means 200 watt seconds. And yeah, providing you know what you're doing, I think this is gonna get you there most of the time. Yeah, if you're clever for on-location light, I don't think you're gonna need in too many situations. I've got the X2T trigger for Sony cameras because I shoot Sony now. I've recently swapped to this one from the other style of Godox trigger. I forgot what the other ones are called. I think they're called the X Pro. I much prefer this. It seems to be much more reliable and consistent. And one thing that always annoyed me about the other ones was the battery indicator on the other style. Always, no matter how fresh the batteries were, in my experience, it was always half or below, and it was really hard to tell actually how much battery there was. But it seems to be fixed in this model, and I just think this looks better on camera. It's a small thing, but I think that makes a big difference. Okay, in this main accessories compartment here, let's have a look. So I've got gels for my small flashes. The flashes that I have a bit of Velcro on the top, and it's easy with these bits of plastic to slide a colored gel in and then just stick that over the top, and it saves you from using a full sheet to try and fill out your softbox or whatever modifier you're using. So I've got the gels, and I've also got assorted cables for syncing flashes, sync cables. On those, just to make them as versatile as possible, I have the 1/4" adapters, and I also have some spare things, a spigot and a hot shoe adapter there. Both of those things are going to come in very useful at one point or another in your off-camera light journey. So the bags that I keep these in are these little pencil cases. I think they're from Muji actually. They have these little clear mesh pencil cases. I really like them. They look good. I added this little tab on here, but they look good and you can see what's inside them without having to open them up and go through them. And they just fit nicely in here. Okay, so I have, apart from the batteries in the camera, I have 2 sets of Eneloop batteries in here. These are a couple of years old. They're not super new, but they're still solid as. Can't complain about those. Oh, I should say I've got them in these little battery holders, these little containers. And the reason I use these is because at a glance, if I'm looking at them, I know that if I've put the batteries back in upside down, then the batteries are spent. So at a glance, I can look at these 2 containers and I can say that is fully charged and that is a spent set of batteries, and different colors as well. So I just know which one I've put back, which one I've grabbed already. In here, I also have a spare battery for the AD200. So I'm pretty sure these batteries are rated at about 300 full power flashes, which I hardly ever shoot at full power on these. So I've actually never ever run out of this flash while using it. So 2 batteries for almost anything should keep me going, you know, for an on-location shoot as long as I need it. And the other thing I have in here is the bare bulb adapter for the AD200. So the way these work is the stock one is like a flash head, like a Fresnel or whatever head, I'm not exactly sure what you call it, just a regular flash tube. And you can also swap that out with this bare bulb adapter. Just clicks in like that. And I think the value that I found from this is it's obviously going to spread light in 360 degrees. And I think you get a little bit more output, just a tiny bit, because, you know, there's a diffuser on this obviously to change the spread of the light, but this is just a bare bulb, 360 degrees. I particularly like using this in something like a beauty dish, because the beauty dish has, you know, so many layers of diffusion and it has that little reflector in there. I just like it to be able to fill the dish a little bit more. I haven't noticed too much of a difference, to be honest, between the two. And this one I really like because I can put gels on it. But yeah, it's good to have. And I think for just a little bit more output, a little bit more consistent output, I'm happy to put that one on. So in the other accessories compartment here, I have the battery charger for the AD200 flash. I have the cable for it. I have some ball bungees. These things are all sorts of useful. These ones are actually my own design. I drew them up, had them 3D printed. It was a project many years ago that I was pursuing. I was going to start to sell them because a ball bungee is a very handy thing, but the ball bungees that you buy from somewhere else, they just don't look very good. They don't look very cool on set. So I started to make my own. I might pick that up again at some point, but these are my own personal design ball bungees. This is a weird one. I've never seen anyone else use these, but I came across it a while back and it just seems like such a handy, useful thing. It's a bumper for the back of the AD200. And this is for people like myself who are often shooting alone and without an assistant. And the point of it is that right? Yeah, the point of it is when you've got this on a stand, if anything was to happen, if something was to knock or blow your flash over and it was to hit the deck, it's got this soft rubber bumper to protect it from smashing. And that's more useful. That's going to come in more handy than you might think, particularly if you're like me and someone who is often shooting alone without an assistant. So let's pop that back in there. Ball bungees in too. All right, the last bit I have in this side compartment here is my Pocket Wizard Plus X set. You're probably wondering why I have these. I've at the moment I've got an entirely Godox system, so I use the X2T trigger here. And the benefit of that trigger is I can control my flash settings from the camera. I don't actually have to run around to each flash to change the settings. But the one thing I will say, I've never had a problem with this one, but the last Godox trigger I had, it was a little bit unreliable. And particularly with the Sony cameras, I find the little contacts on the bottom to be very delicate. So just in case something happens and it stops wanting to talk to the camera, I think it's really important to have a set of generic, very reliable triggers in your kit as well. I think for the 3-pack of the Pocket Wizard Plus X, it's about $200. So it does sound like a big investment, but the beauty of it is that no matter what lights you use, no matter what flash from a 1980s hot shoe flash to brand new Pro Photo, Broncolor, whatever, you're gonna be able to trigger it with these Pocket Wizards. They're just so reliable. There's a reason that they've been the industry standard for so long. So I think any working professional needs to have a backup, and there's no better, more reliable backup than Pocket Wizard. All right, that is it for kit number 1. Let's have a look at kit number 2. So there's a bit less going on in this kit. This is my large flash. It's for situations where I'm gonna need something that is more powerful, or I'm gonna need something that's gonna last longer than the smaller flashes. So the main part of this kit is the Godox AD600 Pro. It's just, it's the best bang for buck studio flash you can get, in my opinion. All of the features of like a Pro Photo B1 or, that sort of battery powered flash, but for like a quarter of the cost. And one thing that I really love is the batteries aren't too expensive, so it doesn't hurt to have a couple here. And probably the best part of all is that you can also swap out the batteries with the AC power unit. So basically, if you are in the studio or if you're somewhere on location and your batteries run out for whatever reason, you can just stick this on, and with a kettle lead, you can shoot all day using mains power. It's just so handy, and I don't know why more brands don't do that. Just so clever. So according to the B&H website, the AD600 Pro with the 2600 mAh batteries, they're rated to 360 full power flashes. And again, I'm very, very rarely ever shooting at full power. So, some quick maths, if I'm shooting at half power, which is still, that's a lot. If I'm shooting half power, it's something like, 720 half power flashes. Again, one battery is likely gonna last you all day. 2, I've never run out of 2 batteries, so I'm pretty comfortable with that. The only other stuff that I have in here are that's the kettle lead for the AC power there, and then I just have the charger that goes with these batteries. Like I said, I've never run out of both before, but it would be so easy. If you are in a studio environment, once one runs out, just chuck the other one on the charger, and by the time you are finished with the first, the other one will be charged. That's the rundown. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider checking out the one on screen now, where I use this exact kit to shoot some environmental portraits of one of my favorite Melbourne artists. Cheers.